Hey everyone, good morning. I believe we're live right now. We're just in a virtual green room. I've never been in a virtual green room, so this is so cool. My name is Shira Lazar. I'm super excited to be here. This is my first webinar with Habitat NYC, and we've got a very insightful conversation in store for you. Today we're talking about mindfulness and meditation, a conversation about how access to housing impacts your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And before I welcome our guests, here are some staggering stats I want to share with you. Now, over the last 20 years, New York City has lost over 330,000 units of affordable housing, tripled the number of New Yorkers sleeping in homeless shelters. That means 23,000 per night to 64,000 per night. That's crazy. Families make up to 2/3 of that number, with nearly 20,000 homeless children. And the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment increased by 61%. Now, the national homeownership rate in the US is 65%, whereas New York City's homeownership rate is 33%. And these numbers really show that a change needs to happen. Think about that for a moment. Many of today's guests, myself included, we all have a safe place to call home. Many of us know the stress that comes with moving, having unpredictable roommates, or unaccommodating building managers and landlords. It's an unfortunate reality for many New Yorkers, all of which has been that much more challenging, as we know, since this pandemic started. So I want to continue the conversation now with someone who I love, psychologist, media personality, health expert, and founder of the Acoma Project, Dr. Alfiee. Thanks for being here.
Yes, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here. It's always a joy and an adventure with you, Miss Shira, my friend.
It is. It is. And you are so special. And I think this is so relevant to have this conversation right now, including with you and everything that you do in this space. First, just give people a recap of like what you do day to day in the Acoma Project, just for some
Sure.
context. Yeah.
Sure. So a couple things. So with the Acoma Project, it was founded, our tagline is mental health research and care for all. And we're really about ensuring that everybody feels like their mental health is centered. I always have this thing that I say, that, which is you are valuable simply because you exist. And what we really want everybody to understand when they come in to work with the Acoma Project, we're mostly outreach and research, is we want people to know that their specific mental health needs matter. We want marginalized populations of people of color to know that their mental health needs are super important to us. And we also want people to understand that there are ways that they can take care of their mental health by themselves, even when they can't access a mental health professional. So we're all about all those things. I have a podcast, as you well know, Couched in Color, where we talk about these same things with Acoma. And so all of my work is really about making sure that everybody knows their mental health matters.
And when you heard those stats that I just shared, what is your take on that? I mean, how does that impact our mental, emotional, and spiritual health?
Well, you nailed it, Shira. You talked about how challenging it is anytime we have significant changes in our lives. And when you have that coupled with uncertainty, that can be devastating. And in many ways, it is really traumatic for people. And when you talk about kids, right, most of our work with the Acoma Project is with teens and young adults. That's who we focus on. And when you think about the stressors, right, what do kids want more than anything? They want to fit in. And how hard is it to fit in when your basic needs and necessities are not met, or they're met unevenly, or you don't know where your next meal is coming from, or you don't know where you're going to lay your head at night? And so all I could think about was two things. I tend to be an optimist. And not that there's a whole lot to be optimistic about when you hear those staggering statistics, but I thought, one thing is it's devastating for the families. And the second thing I thought is, but the hope that I have, even in what can be the most hopeless of situations, is that the families have each other, right? And so the kids have family members who are there to support them and be with them and help guide them through this time. But of course, it's devastating for everyone. So it's just heartbreaking for me when I hear those kinds of stats.
And as we know, sometimes families are not together, right? And they're separated, or a family member can't be around because they need to work to just support,
That's right,
the family unit. So
right.
how are people supposed to handle these situations? It just seems obviously very traumatizing and beyond challenging.
Yes. I think there's not, one thing that I always encourage people to do is think about what you can control in your little corner of the world. What can you control? And as you're talking, I'm listening, but I'm also thinking, okay, in those kinds of situations, maybe there are older siblings and younger siblings. So while the parent is out working, there's an older sibling who we shouldn't task with all that responsibility, but who in the moment might have to take on that responsibility. And so when the parent returns, part of it is going to that older child and soothing them and comforting them and encouraging them and telling them how much they're appreciated and how much they're valued, but also creating some space for that, in that made up scenario for that child to get their own little piece of respite. It's also for the adult to try to find space in their day in a way where they can just breathe just a little bit, even in the midst of such a stressful situation. And all of that is to model for a younger child who's in this horrible situation that there are things that they can control, even though they're tiny. You can control your breathing. You can control finding a little bit of space where you can just think a little bit. And you can only do that if you see other people doing it and modeling it for you. But that's one tiny piece of a huge traumatic thing that families who are struggling with home security are dealing with. And I recognize that.
Yeah. And of course, that this impacts so many people also later in life. I mean, you carry this stress with you and this trauma from that experience, even if you've overcome it or you've gotten support, it still stays with you. So how are people supposed to manage that?
I think therapy is for everybody, right? So you hear people saying therapy is cool, hashtag therapy is cool, therapy is dope, my therapist is dope. I think we have to be mindful that therapy is something that can help us manage those kinds of stressors, even when they're not acute and immediate. So over time, it's really about, you don't have to be in with a psychotherapist, seeing them 2-3 times a week, but just giving yourself the grace and giving yourself the benefit of having somebody to continually process those things with as you go through your life, right? Because you're right. Those early childhood experiences carry with you for the rest of your life, and you have to manage them, as I always say, or those stressors are going to manage you, and that's not what we want.
Yeah. So do you have daily routines that even for those who might not have the resources to be able to have or, add to their day that can support this, support the anxiety, support that stress, and kind of allow them to start to process that trauma?
Sure. So a couple things. What we're here talking about today, I'm big on mindfulness. I'm big on meditation. And mindfulness, in my experience, is simply just being present. Where am I in this moment? Right now, I am talking to my beautiful friend, Shira Lazar. I am sitting, on Skype. I'm talking to all the wonderful people who are watching. That's where I am right in this moment. In this moment, my puppy is on the floor in her little bed under my desk, and I'm hoping she'll be quiet. That's where I am, like, just in this moment. I think that those are the things that we can control, what's right here in this moment, being present. That's a key feature. That's something really important that we have to do. I think it's also important to create space for breathing. So I like all of breathing apps, the meditation apps. There's so many of them out there. The ones that I use are Nature Space, Calm, people like Headspace, but there's so many. There's a beautiful one called Smile that was developed by women of color. So I use those kinds of apps. I think also exercise, even if all you can do is walk out of the house, walk around the block, walk out of the apartment, or walk around the block, walk out of the shelter and walk around the block, if it's safe. Marching in place, just to get the blood flowing and the blood pumping. Those are things that I think are really important. And then just taking a moment to be still and silent and just take in what you're feeling in the moment so you can be aware of your feelings, right? Those are things that I feel like we really have to do on a regular basis. They're free, they don't cost anything, and they really do help us.
And what's helped me is even journaling that, taking inventory through putting it out there in front of me so I could see it and feel it and not hold on to it.
That's right. That's right. I love journaling. I think for many people, what I'll say is old fashioned is the best way, because you put it on the computer, you may lose it. You may accidentally hit a button and it goes off into cyberspace and all your business is out there. So if you can write, I'm not saying don't do it on a computer, just be mindful, no pun intended, of how you're doing that journaling. But writing, I think the process of putting the pen to the paper can be super helpful. And it also can help you reflect. I still have journals right in my desk right now from 20 years ago. And I go back and look at where I was and I look at where I've come to. And it is so helpful to see the growth. So I love that idea of journaling as well.
And on the other side of things, when you're I wouldn't say the outsider, but the advocate activist who hears these numbers and is just like overwhelmed also, well, there's two sides. I'll start with this one. The person that feels like, is there hope? How can they even help? It all feels very out of their control or overwhelming. What do you say to that person? Then I want to move over to the advocate activist after that.
Sure. So the person who feels overwhelmed, what I say is every day that this is something from my family's deep South. old Southern African American. And so in that culture, I'm sure this is in many cultures, what people say is every day that I'm upright is a day that I have another opportunity to do something. I'm here. That is what's most important. So I happened to lose my mom to pancreatic cancer about 14 years ago. And so after that experience, every day that I open my eyes, I'm like, okay, I got another day. And sometimes that just helps me breathe and say, oh yeah, my dad lives with me. He's still here. My kids are here. They're safe. My spouse is with me. My brother's alive. And so it almost makes me teary thinking about it. But that, just on a fundamental level, the fact that I woke up this morning, that's what gives me hope. And I think sometimes it has to be as simple as that. I'm here. I can do something today. So that's what I try to do. And I always find that it helps me.
I love that. And we almost don't have a choice. If you say there's gratitude for being here, then there's no choice otherwise than to have hope for what's possible for yourself and others, from the small to the bigger issues that we're all dealing with. I guess because we do have a lot of people that I'm assuming are the activist advocates, right? They're fighting for change. They're donating the money. They're volunteering. They're all on the front lines. Those individuals still need self-care too, right?
Yes.
So what advice, and you're one of them, you've been obviously helping a lot of clients, but you're putting yourself out there. And as a Black woman, you're trying to deal with everything that's happening, that's impacting you, and then also being there for others. So how do you deal with all of that? I just threw a lot out there, but it is a lot.
Yes. No, it is a lot. And I think what I say is I'm operating from the gifts that I was born with, my gifts and talents. And I woke up this morning really meditating on that. And I just thought, you know what? There's no greater power. That's your superpower. The fact that you are you, the fact that you have the specific gifts and talents that you have. I don't have all the money in the world. I'm not independently wealthy. I wish I were, but I'm not. But what I do have is a brain. I have a mouth that works. I have a voice. I can speak. I have my physical appearance. I have this thing I always tell people. And I want my activists and advocates out there to hear this. Sometimes our mere presence is an act of resistance. The fact that you are showing up, the fact that I show up as a Black woman in these kinds of spaces, the fact that you as a white woman invite a woman who looks like me into these spaces, we're not having a conversation about race per se. We're talking about a whole globe of people who are struggling with something very important, home insecurity and homelessness. That's our superpower, that we can come together and do this. Like, I'm going to date myself, like the Wonder Twins, right? We come together and we form and we're able to produce something beautiful. That's what I say to people. You operate from the gifts that you were given because no one else has that unique set of gifts, and you extend yourself some grace because you are using your gifts and talents for the best cause possible to help other people who need it.
I love that. Yes, Monday motivation. But you must get tired. What do you do when you get tired and you need to take that break? Like, how do you handle that?
Sure. So I'm big on talking about burnout on my Instagram page, and I talk about how do you manage it. And I think I'm always taking inventory. And so I try to stop myself. Prevention to me is 1,000 million times better than intervention, right? So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I'm always trying to use my meditation time and use my mindfulness to think about how am I feeling physically, how am I feeling psychically, how am I feeling emotionally. And I'm a very spiritual person. So I will sit still and I will say, okay, where am I today? And if I start feeling the agitation, I always feel it physically before I realize, fully that it's burnout. And when I start feeling that agitation, I'm snappy, I'm short with people. I don't have a lot of patience. I'm like, okay, something's up. And that's the point at which I will stop and take stock and say, okay, what's going on? I will look at my calendar and say, oh, the calendar's full. Last week's calendar was full. Okay, it's time to take a step back. And sometimes what I will do in the moment is literally, we live on a busy street. I will walk out my front door and literally just walk 3 or 4 blocks up the street. We live close to a hospital, and then down the street back in the other direction, just to clear my head, right? Because sometimes that's what you need. You just have to have a clear headspace to think about what you need to do next. So if I prevent the onset of it, which I'm pretty good at, I don't ever have to deal with being in the throes of it and trying to dig myself out.
Yeah, for so many people that are still, figuring out that self-awareness, that is hard. And then it just hits you right in the face. And I'm sure there are people watching that have been dealing with this during this time. And depending on, your resources, the support system, where you're at in your life, people could feel it at different levels. So what are people supposed to do when they get to that point? Maybe they haven't done that preventative work.
Yeah, they're in it. When you're in it, I think the best thing to do is to stop. Just stop moving, right? For me, it's really important that we just understand you cannot function from that space if you're depleted, right? So
Yeah.
you've got to get a way to get replenished. And part of how we get replenished is we stop. You have to stop moving. You have to stop taking on more things. You have to learn how to flex the no muscle, right? I tell people all the time, no is a complete sentence. So you have to tell people no so that you can, and it's not being selfish. I heard a Jan Van Zant say years ago, it's being self-full. So you have to be filled with yourself, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. People say that all the time, and it's kind of cliche, but it's true. If your cup is empty, you have nothing to give anybody else, and you have to start with you. So what I say to people is when you find yourself in the space of burnout, that's the time to sit down, be still, and just think, what is my next best move? And I hope that the answer is my next best move is to do one thing to take care of me.
I love that. Sleep for me is huge, but not everyone can get that sleep, right? Wherever you can
Yes,
get it, even if you're just sitting
that,
in a chair, closing
that's
your
right.
eyes.
The
Um,
nap ministry. I heard about this cool thing, the nap
yeah.
ministry. I'm all for it.
What is
Yeah.
it? The
The
nap
nap ministry
ministry.
is really, it's called the nap ministry. It's on Instagram. So apparently it's all encouraging people to take naps, right? That taking a nap is not a bad thing. I think they probably teach you how to structure a nap, 15, 20-minute power nap at some point in your day. And so they're all about promoting that, just what you said, that sleep is critical and encouraging people to sleep as a part of their self-care and health regimen.
Yeah, sleep is the greatest form of meditation. Someone has said that. And just as we wrap things up, you've done a lot on the policy side, even I feel like on the mental health side. And so, what advice do you have for people that want to make that change? And there's different ways to create change, right? You do it through
Yes,
your
yes,
podcast, you have your nonprofit, you're doing it
yes.
through policy. So let's go kind of through that holistic view of action.
Yeah. So I think it's about having an idea, right? So that to me, the idea was, how can I take my research lab? I was in departments of psychiatry for 20 years. And I said, all right, let me take this and I need to do something that's going to make me fulfilled. And that I went from academic, what I used to call, I'm a recovering academic. I always say that because this
Hmm.
that's a whole thing, in and of itself. And as an academic, I wanted to move to more of a public academic. And that the seeds of turning my research lab into a nonprofit. So that gives me an opportunity to do the outreach and generate the research. I think in addition to that, once I did that, stepped into my power, stepped into the wholeness of who I am and my gifts and talents, the other stuff came. So the policy came along because people had seen me do media work. So stepping into my power allowed someone to come and say, oh, let's interview you for NBC. So we did the NBC interview. And then the policy work came because somebody saw the NBC interview. To me, that's all serendipity. All those things are connected and all those things are happening or have happened because I decided to step into my power in my little teeny corner of the world. I didn't know that all those things were going to show up, but I do feel like if you can operate from your own gifts and talents, as I've said many times before, the opportunities will arise. And I think the opportunities will be interconnected because you are working from a place that is grounded, that is centered in who you are. It's not about 100% self awareness. I get that. We're not all there. I'm not still fully there. But if I'm working from my purpose, I feel like those other things come. And for me, the line, the thread that goes through all of that is the research and the population focus. That's what allows me to generate the research, to be on media, talking about what I've generated, and allows the policymakers to see it. And someone decided, in my case, it was Bonnie Watson Coleman from New Jersey, this is important what you're doing. Come help me in my space doing what I'm doing. Do you see what I mean? And then the
Yeah.
final thing I'll say is it's the allowing yourself to be collaborative, right? I didn't set out to do policy. And when you go do policy, you have to speak differently, you have to write differently. So I had to allow myself to be flexible enough to take what I knew and use her guidance to turn it into something that would speak to policymakers. And I think that's a part of it. You can't stay stuck in, well, this is the way I do it and this is the only way it can be done, because that's not going to work in different settings. It's just like with
Yeah.
media, right? And so it's understanding how to be flexible, collaborative, and always working from your own gifts and talents. That's what it has been for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like there could be people watching who are obviously passionate about changing the homeless and housing crisis in New York City here. And they're saying, like, wow, you've done a lot with your nonprofit. You've done a lot with your work in mental health. Like, how do I do this in these areas, even though it's all very much connected?
Yes. And I think it is you keep working in this space where you're working. And I do think people will come to you. If they don't come to you in a quick enough time and you get impatient, then you figure out who are the people locally, right? I wouldn't necessarily start shooting for DC, but you start locally. Who can I connect with locally at the policy level who will listen to what I have to say? You may create a one sheet. Put the one sheet in front of a staffer and say, I want to stay in touch with you so we can work on this. And I think if you can cultivate those relationships, I think when the time comes for it to become bigger and you can be involved in policy around homelessness, around home security, food insecurity, whatever you're passionate about, those opportunities will come. So you nudge it a little, and then I think it grows.
Now, we're about to get into meditation part of our programming, but before we do that, we've been talking about mindfulness, mental health. This is such a stressful time. 2020 has been just crazy, right? And you've obviously shared advice, but as we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share with people today as we get into the next week? Is just, we all know is going to be crazy, a lot of uncertainty. What advice do you have for us all to stay grounded and find peace right now?
What you just did as you were talking, I heard you breathe. That's what I say. I tell everybody, breathe. That's the one thing that you can control for the most part, right? I understand that some people have respiratory issues, but you can breathe. You can stop, be still, and breathe. And that's what I tell people. Breathing clearly is essential. And you're finding your breath is really a way, we're going to learn shortly. I'm going to pay attention and take copious notes, but your breath is your friend. Use your breath wisely. Just breathe.
Do you have any morning or nighttime routines that support you?
Absolutely. A couple. So I have this album that I've been listening to of affirmations from a super producer named Mark Batson. I listen to that every morning. I also, before I touch any device, I meditate. I don't touch any device until I meditate. And the first thing I do when I get out of the bed is come sit on my yoga mat or sit on the ground to literally get grounded. That's every day. And if I don't do that, the rest of my day, I can just feel it. And if I maybe don't have a chance to do it because I have an early morning meeting, as soon as the meeting is over, I go sit. It has to happen. So that's my daily routine. Meditation is every day because I'm anxious and I can't function if I don't meditate. Yeah, I'm very anxious. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's also important to notice you, right? Like, and not be scared. Sometimes it's scary to confront the fact that you might be this word or that word, it comes with all these different, sometimes stigmas behind it. So how do we overcome those stigmas in whatever space we're in?
I have to name it. So me sitting here as a chocolate girl, a Black woman, saying to people, I am anxious. This is generalized anxiety disorder, right? I'm very open about the fact that I have anxiety. And if I can say it publicly and people can see it, and then they can pay attention to all the things that I do and see how I function in those spaces, I think what it tells people is, yeah, you can have anxiety, but still have a full, healthy, wonderful, beautiful life. You just have to manage it. So that's what I do. I'm open about it. I tell people, right? Anxiety is a thing that I have. It doesn't have me. But the reason it doesn't have me is because I use active coping. I am always working on it. It's part of my family history. I have 2 kids. I've told them this is the gift that mommy has given to you, the genetic predisposition to anxiety. So if you can work on it now, you can manage it. You can make it a small part of your life and it doesn't have to control your life. So that's what I do. Just be honest about it.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely have some anxiety as well. So, Dr. Alfiee, so appreciate you for being here today. Please, everyone, follow Dr. Alfiee on Instagram at Dr. Alfiee with 2 E's, at Acoma Project. That's her nonprofit that she spoke about. Couched in Color is her podcast as well. So many great things. I so appreciate you today and everything that you are and the positivity that you share with everyone.
Namaste, Shira. You know I love you. You're wonderful.
Yes, and hopefully you can enjoy some meditation too right now. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yes.
And also, I just want to let everyone know, for our viewers, if you're interested in getting more involved with the affordable housing movement with Habitat NYC, then connect with Habitat NYC on social media. This is the fastest and easiest way to become an advocate. You can also go to their website, habitatnyc.org, to learn all the ways that you can get involved. Dr. Alfiee, I am going to say goodbye to you. Any just final comments? I mean, we already kind of have done it. Anything else you want to say as you say goodbye?
I want to say, yes, one thing. There's this anonymous poem. The only line I know of it I want to share. No is a necessary magic. It draws a circle around you so you can have peace. That's what I want to share with people. Use your no voice. Don't overstress yourself.
I love that. Thank you, Dr. Alfiee, again, and we'll see you in the watch party rooms.
All right.
Yes, love it. All right, bye. Up next, we have Jordana Reim, who I love. She's also my co-founder of Peace Inside Live, a community offering daily virtual classes and corporate experiences around mindfulness meditation and movement. I know she's coming in here now as we do this whole virtual experience. Where's Jordana at?
I'm right here.
Okay. Hi, Jordana. How's it going?
Hi, Shira. It's so good to be here. I'm just like biggest smile on my face right now. I loved that conversation that you had with Dr. Alfiee. I mean, I was just shaking my head. Yes, 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 yes. Taking some deep breaths with you guys. And it's such an honor to be here alongside you, of course, Dr. Alfiee, and everyone here who's watching Habitat for Humanity NYC.
Yeah, and you're in Thailand right now, but you are a New Yorker.
Yes, I grew up in New Jersey, and once I could, I moved right to New York City and lived there for 7 years. And I'm still a New Yorker at heart. Doesn't matter where I am in the world, I have that New Yorker bit in me, and that New Yorker anxiety as well.
Right.
I very much can empathize with that. I feel it every day.
Well, before we get into the meditation, which will help all of us with our anxiety today and just grounding as we get into this week, I want to let everyone know that Jordana and I donated a Peace Inside Live package to the silent auction. Jordana, do you want to tell everyone about the donation?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So we know that Habitat NYC has a lot of amazing partners, and this package that we've put together is for up to 250 employees to partner with us on the Peace Inside Your Workplace program. So Shira and I will work with you directly to plan and execute an experience that supports a strong, resilient, and caring company culture. This is a huge issue right now. Pre-COVID, 1 in 5 Americans were feeling anxiety, and now more than half of Americans are reporting impaired mental health, and employee burnout is at an all-time high. So with that, there's also this great opportunity for well-being to come into the picture from employers. And so we work with you to take the most of this opportunity to make positive changes, to make lasting changes, to do this workplace mindfulness programming that employees will remember you for and will associate with the company. So some of the topics that we've broached in this program have been navigating change and embracing uncertainty, leading with compassion, and understanding anxiety and how to actually befriend it. One interesting thing as well is that we operate on a buy one, give one model. So the purchase of this program allows you to share in the ripple effect of kindness through your purchase. So we also give a mindfulness workshop to a nonprofit of your choice.
Love that. Thank you so much, Jordana, for sharing more about that. You can bid on this empowering experience for your workplace when the hashtag Design Unites auction opens, hosted by our friends at Hearst Luxury and Design Collection and powered by Charity Buzz. Thank you to them for supporting this. And now we're moving on to your meditation.
Yes, awesome. So I love what Dr. Alfiee was saying about what we can control and what we can't. And you know, Shira, I love to start every meditation with 3 deep breaths. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking, but I thought just even before I talk, let's presence ourselves with those 3 deep breaths. So sitting up a little bit taller in your chair and having your feet grounded, planted firmly. You can roll the shoulders up and back. Having the chin level with the ground, sitting up tall, upright in your spine. And if it feels comfortable for you, just pause, breathing in through the nose. Deep breath in, filling all the way up. And then open the mouth, sigh it out, let it go. Another deep breath in through the nose. And then opening the mouth, letting it go. And third breath in, deep breath. And then exhaling, letting it go. And then opening your eyes and returning. Yeah. So Shira, thank you for joining in those deep breaths. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the meditation that we're going to go into, which is one for compassion. And as Dr. Alfiee said, I love that she said this, I'm here today, I can do something. And so the first thing that we do is we presence ourselves. And we presence ourselves in the moment by finding the breath. Right. And I'll guide you through that this morning. We anchor into presence with what's here now. Right. And from this place of grounding, presence, and being in this moment, then we can exercise compassion outward. Right. We can allow our own thoughts, first and foremost, to flow and not judge them. And so what I'm going to bring us into is a practice known as Tonglen, of giving and receiving. And so we will ground, and then we'll be able to actually take in some of the pain that we see from a place of being grounded in ourselves, to give compassion back out. So we fill up our own cups and then we give it back out. So if you'll trust me in this, we'll go together on this journey. And I think we'll get our music started right now. Great. And wherever you are, just noticing where you are before you close your eyes, just taking a look around the room where you sit and just noticing what's around you, noticing what's over your left shoulder, maybe naming one object and noticing something about it. And then looking over the other shoulder, noticing something. And then looking up towards the ceiling and noticing something up there perhaps, and then looking down at your feet, seeing that you are planted firmly on the ground here. Beautiful. And from here, closing your eyes if it's comfortable. And you can begin again with a few deep breaths just on your own as you ground into your body. As you feel the connection points of your body with the chair that you're sitting in. And as your breath fills up the entire cavity of your body, and naturally finding your breath returning to its normal pattern, unforced, unchanged by you. And for a moment, simply watching as your breath flows in and out of your body. Just seeing where you notice the breath flowing. Maybe it's in and out through the nostrils. Maybe it's moving to the heart, the chest. Maybe it's the rise and fall of your belly. And just practice receiving this breath on the inhale. And presencing yourself on the exhale. As you notice the breath, we call this place center. Breathing into this place called center. Receiving. And breathing out, presencing. And so where you are now in this moment of presence, being here now, I'd like you to call in your resources of compassion. This is anyone in your life, whether you know them personally or not, whether they are alive or they have passed on. They may be human. They could be an animal, a pet perhaps, or maybe a spirit guide of yours. All representations of compassion. Imagine that they can join you in the space where you are right here and now. Seeing the face or the faces of compassion in this room with you. Perhaps noticing the energy that brings about. Maybe you feel a sensation in the body of warmth. Maybe it allows you to relax just a little bit more in the jaw, the shoulders. Because these representations, these people or animal spirit guides in your life are here for you, want what's best for you, and want to guide you in the light of compassion. So as you breathe in here, fill up with the love and compassion that they beam towards you. And exhaling, grounding into this moment of the light of compassion shining upon you. As you receive it, knowing that you are fully worthy of receiving this compassion. And that it takes receiving this compassion, including yourself in the circle of compassion, in order to give it out. And so with that, we take this power of compassion and apply it to our minds right now. So as we sit and breathe for the next minute, we can begin to breathe away the debris of anything that is less than love and compassion. Any flames of judgment or fear, aversion, worry, resentment, anger. Any thoughts of these that arise. We simply bring the energy of compassion that we are breathing in through all of those around us who cheer us on in the light of compassion. And we extinguish those flames in the river of compassion that flows through us. The Buddha says to become a river of compassion so that the flames of discord are immediately extinguished when they come into contact with you. So as you breathe here, and maybe thoughts arise in the mind, whatever they are, you can imagine that this river of compassion that flows through you can begin to extinguish any of those flames, whether they be judgment, fear, resentment, frustration. We do this so that we can be a clear channel to give. And so feeling yourself becoming more and more clear in your intention to be the light of compassion, the river that extinguishes discord. And now we can bring to mind someone who we know personally, who's going through a hard time right now, who could use our compassion, who could use this clear channel that we are grounding ourselves in. And we take it upon ourselves to recognize them in our minds and our hearts, so that we might begin to allay the pain. And so seeing this person, recognizing their suffering, their pain, and from the sincerity of your own heart, a wanting to help this person, to relieve their suffering. And on an inhale, what you'll do is you'll imagine that you could take that suffering out like a smoke that comes out from them, that you breathe in. And as you breathe it in, you take a look at it and you say, yes, I can. And then you allow it to come right to your heart. And as that smoke comes to your heart, you can then exhale and imagine that there is a beam of light that comes from your heart that goes right back to them. And so taking just a few cycles of this, seeing your desire to alleviate their pain, their suffering. And as if you could breathe it in and up out of them, this smoke comes to you and you say, yes, I can. You take it into your heart. And any parts of you that still hold on to judgment get smashed. Any fear or aversion that is left in your heart gets smashed as you, with sincerity, want to take on their suffering, their pain, and to breathe back out this beam of light, that they be better off because you see them, because you hear them. Now I'd like you to imagine someone else, someone you know who is currently experiencing homelessness. Maybe you know them personally, or maybe you don't, right? Maybe you just know that this is an issue. You've seen the faces of these people and you wish there was something that you could do. First and foremost, getting in touch with that sincerity of wanting to do something. And then breathing it in, that smoke, taking it up and out, saying, I can, yes, I can take action. Breathing it in, taking it in, and as if you could smash any remnants of judgment, fear, frustration that's within you. Smash it and send back out a beam of light, of hope, of resilience, of compassion and caring. And doing just a few rounds of that. Feeling your intention to do well in this world for yourself and others growing. And how wonderful it is to expand this heart of yours. And now I'd like you to imagine all the faces of community as you imagine community. It might be your community that you're most familiar with, or the community of our entire nation. And the same process again. Breathing in, taking in that smoke of suffering, of fear, worry, anxiety from them. Yes, I can take it. I can do something. And then beaming light back out from your heart. And repeating that for a few cycles, or perhaps bringing to mind another community, or perhaps this entire world. The same process. And coming to it from an empowered place of, yes, I can. Because when I am grounded in myself, in this moment of giving myself care, of taking this pause, I can take action. And I do so with skill, with wisdom, with the wealth of compassion that I grow each and every day. And so right here, taking our last 2 minutes just to check in, to feel the fullness of receiving and giving. And feeling a sense of being guided here. Maybe you put a hand on your heart or your belly, just to access what's here now. And together we share an intention of growing this compassionate heart. All of our compassionate hearts together, joining across space and time. May we know compassion for ourselves and others. May it increase more and more with mindfulness, with practice, with tuning in right here, right now. Taking a deep breath into this place where your hand touches the body. And feeling the connection point right there. And feeling the connection points of your body in the chair. And with your breath, deepening and landing yourself back into this physical form. Ready for compassionate action in your day, in your week. You can slowly begin to open your eyes and return. So,
Jordana, thank you so much. I didn't even know when to come in. I was experiencing that with everyone, and that was just such a beautiful way to begin the day. So thank you.
So welcome. I just, even sharing the meditation, I can feel the energy of everyone who's with us, Habitat NYC and all of the partners here present, that we're doing this together, and that energy just builds and builds and builds. And it's something that we can do every day in our lives, is to say, I see that there is suffering out there, me too. And I want to help, I want to help. And so I sit and I ground myself in breath, in my body, so that I can be that pillar of calm, and so that I can take it on. And I may not know all of the answers. I probably won't. But the first one is to take that breath, to shift ourselves into that place, and then to have the intention of, I want to help. How can I do that? How can I start?
Amazing and inspirational. Thank you so much. And of course, Jordana is my co-founder of PeaceInside.live. You can check out all our classes right there. They're virtual, they're on Zoom, they're donation-based, and she has a self-love one tonight. So
That's right.
Yes, just wanted to give you a little shout out, but
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Thank you. This is such a gift.
Such a gift to be part of this. Thank you to Habitat NYC and everyone who's joined us today.
Definitely. And I also want to thank Dr. Alfiee for joining us, just a shout out to her and for being here. We hope you learned about the importance of self-care. And now that you know more about how access to housing can drastically impact your mental, emotional, and spiritual health, you have an opportunity to learn how you can impact affordable housing in New York City. And the next webinar, Habitat NYC's Young Professionals Board presents right now an in-depth conversation about the importance of advocating for affordable housing and how you can make a difference. Coming up next, I'm Shira Lazar. Have a great time, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye. Have a great day.